Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to break down, or at least try our best to break down, that Game 1 opener from this series between Polar Ace and Simplicity Esports. Now, something that we do want to confirm, since not many of us here on the broadcast team knew about this until going into game. The new jungler for Polar Ace will be the permanent jungler going in for the entire series. So, that's that, folks. And so, with a new jungler means a lot of the variables that we didn't account for making our predictions and making our fantasy picks, unfortunately, now kind of for us. So, but without further ado, we're not going to really hamper on what Polar Ace did in game one, because we have to give where praise is due, and it is towards Simplicity Esports here, Smacks.
Yeah, they definitely came out swinging in this one. I'm very impressed. I'm very proud of them for first picking that Karthus. I definitely called it.
Dude, you're a big brain.
How
much galaxy cream do you take?
That they're doing it. I'm not going to disclose that to you, Cubby. I don't want you in on my secrets here.
You're tempting me to actually use the product. I've been going for the all natural approach, and the guitar pick is smarter than my brain here. The guitar pick saw the sub and maybe a Simplicity one coming through. So
I think your guitar pick knew about the sub jungler before we did, Cubby. Maybe that's what happened.
Mark and I have some excuses
at the
ready already if things go the way of Simplicity, which it definitely does seem like they're going to.
Yes, and diving into that early game, things went boom pretty early when you have Simplicity finding a solo kill level 1 in the top lane, a 2v2 kill bot lane level 1, and then also having a successful jungle invade where you get kills
Karthus.
Level 1. With Karthus, you're going to be set up to have a very tough uphill climb, and it didn't stop there, right? They found more points. I think it was 8-2 on the scoreboard. I think it was the 9-minute mark in, they were 3k gold up, 4k gold up. Simplicity got off to this crazy early game start, and it's good play from then. But honestly, the way that Polar Ace was able to play their way back into it off the back of spawns of Aphelios was pretty good too.
Right. Yeah, they definitely got back into it. They took a page out of Series 1 of yesterday's book there, of making it a little bit more of a fiesta. Kind of felt like it was slipping out of Simplicity's hands just a little bit. I would say almost 200% as much as it was in the early game there, thanks to spawns of Aphelios. Very, very impressive stuff on his team fighting. But
yes,
yeah, the pick potential was just so sick from Simplicity moving forward after that. And that is really what I want to highlight for them. The gold card or the Enchanted Crystal Arrow into Rocket Grab is so sick at taking out just a one high priority target, and that's exactly what Spawn was. We were really worried that Simplicity were about to give us a big fiesta and throw it away after such a dominant early game, because Spawn was getting such a big lead. He had his items on Aphelios. He was barreling towards just the Exodia items for a marksman like Aphelios, and he almost got there, but the pick potential was just so clean from Simplicity. It's exactly what I want to see from them moving forward. If they can get those assassinations against Polar Ace, they can really take a hold in this series against a team that we highlighted as being very, very solid as a 5-man unit. And I'm very impressed after game one.
Yeah, and I actually, it seems like sort of a fiesta when you see those fights play out as long as they did, but I actually like the approach from Simplicity coming out. I thought it was the clean option, because when you have all that pick potential, you have the Enchanted Crystal Arrow, you have that RFC gold card coming in from TF,
right.
You want to bleed out the options or the defensive options that Polar Ace has, right? So you see them taking out a cleanse, one at a time, taking out a QSS, and then once they have those out, they can actually pull the trigger and fight. I really like that coming in from Simplicity, and I think they figured that out in the later game fights, which allowed them to really take the next step and get over the rest of Polar Ace. Also, I just have to say, R5 Jace into 4 globals and a Gangplank top, I am not a fan. What is the Jace supposed to do in that match, right? Yes, you win versus
items, I guess.
you win versus Gangplank, but really? You're going into a Twisted Fate Ashe Karthus and you want to play through a side lane, right? I did not like that choice coming out from Polar Ice whatsoever. And I know it's awkward for them. We don't know how long they've been playing with this jungler. We don't know if this jungler is going to stick around after this match, or if, this is the first games that we've seen him. So I don't want to be too hard on them, but that was a terrible drafting decision coming out from them. I have no idea what Jace is supposed to do. And you could see that Flares was really grasping at straws in the game with his build, everything that he was able to do. Felt like he didn't have much of an impact. I'd like to see a different take from them.
I appreciate you taking the blow for me, Cubby, because I was saying a lot of things during the drafting phase, and especially that R5. I mean, I think all of us here on the analyst desk have a pretty fair general sentiment. I mean, we hear the meme a lot about NA Jace LOL, right? I mean, but there's a reason. This champion, it's not just up to the person to pilot it, although that level 1 was pretty abysmal from Flares, but we have no idea what the mentality for the team is going into this game. If Flares just says, nah, give me Jace, I'll stomp this guy, and then if the overconfidence, or if there's just something from when the early invade happened from Simplicity, put Polar Ace, the rest of the mindset in, oh crap, we're losing to the scaling composition, we need to start playing aggressively. And then with a new jungler involved, one of the things that powerful is when you have resources. It's funny how we talked about this being an issue for Simplicity, but
right.
Polar Ace, if you're gonna pick Jace in the top lane, then you better communicate to your sub junglers, like you better support the hell out of that Jace. It needs and to ensure that it gets off the ground. Otherwise, it is dead useless compared to a Gangplank who has a ton of global pressure and then just has an infinite amount of control in team fights just through barrel combos. So, and I think the biggest thing that I'm impressed about Simplicity is that they play to their strengths without having to sacrifice as much for everyone's individual comfort picks. Looking at the Karthus specifically, right? This is a champion that we talked about Panda being able to farm freely on. And when he is requested or he is needed to help on the other side of the map, he doesn't have to move. He doesn't have to stop farming. He just press SAR and then boom, Requiem comes down. It's a global ultimate. He pays his contribution to the team and then he just continues on power farming. So it's Simplicity of definitely not only recognized, at least for game 1, a lot of their win conditions and strengths, and just some of the champions that just slot in right into how they play best with a lot of these global compositions. Now, going into game 2 here, guys, and I'm gonna start with Smacks. I know Polar Ace, they have a sub jungler, but let's say you're in the position of having to manage a team that is fielding a new player. What do you give this new player a comfort pick, or do you just put him on tank duty? Like, are we going to see something where it's just like, what, you're going to give up a lot of farm, but we just need you to camp for Busio and camp for Flares and get them ahead, or even spawn as well in the bottom lane?
It definitely feels like coming into this match, Polar Ace had a lot of confidence in just taking this one by storm and going with the 2-0. We saw the tweet from their head coach. We see this Jace pick coming out as, kind of an ego pick in the top lane for Flares, not going super well. I feel like with the level of confidence that they had those giant glaring errors not gone the way of Simplicity, in the top lane 1v1, in the invade, in the bot lane 2v2, I feel like we might have seen a whole lot more of what we saw out of Spawn in that mid game, where they are feeling a lot more dominant and they are feeling like they can actually do things in these fights rather than just having their confidence completely shattered. So what I want to see from Polar Ace is if they can assess who still has that confidence from game 1, give them all the resource, because you can see that was really what they were trying to do in this first game. I think Spawn is definitely where you want to take it. As much as I don't want Cubby to get back in that fantasy game, picking up all those points there, he looked super solid on that Aphelios in those mid-game fights. And if he's not against that massive pick potential of Simplicity that it looks so good on, maybe you have more of a chance to really make a name for yourself in this series. On champions like that, Aphelios, maybe the Ezreal, you can be more defensive with it as well. So I definitely would like to see that from Spawn specifically, and the rest of the team can help him out as well. We saw Busio do quite a nice job on that Orianna as well. I really like him on that champion. Maybe we see a repeat of those two champions in a more supportive group of background dancers for the two of them.
Right. And if they do that, though, I don't want them to like pick it into GP where they have nothing to deal with it, right? Because the Jace
Right,
did it work, and GP was actually such a good pick into that comp. Like they would have been better off. Like they could have put Voldiver top into the GP, which is not a great matchup. You could have gotten a better jungle matchup to really attack the Karthus. They could have wanted something like a Righteous Glory Alistar, which would have been great into the team that Simplicity had, and put Soraka top lane. It's rough into the gangplank, but still, at least with Alistar, like you could have made some plays. Instead, they just got ran over in that early game. And with a team that's playing with a sub, that's not the start that you want to have, and you could tell right off the bat that they were thrown off. They tried to come back with Spawn, and like you said, get Spawn Aphelios. Like if you have to first pick that one on blue side, and I'm curious which side Polar Ace selected, as they did lose. They do have side selection. Get Spawn a champion that he can carry with, and just put your eggs in Spawn's basket, right? He's the one player on this team that can really pull through. Flares is talented, but when BMD's able to play for his own side, he's very strong. And I'm getting word from producer Lauren in my ear that Simplicity is going to be blue side once again. So sides will be the same. We're going to have to see. Do they go with this first pick Karthus again? Does Polar Ace take it off the table? Yeah, you got to take it. I think you have to take it away, but also like then you might give up like the Aphelios. Simplicity wants to take that from themselves. Polar Ace, they have an uphill climb, and the biggest thing I want to see, have a better R5 answer, because Jace was not the answer.
Please.
Yeah.
Please.
Rafa never wants to see that champion again.
No, I don't. I'm just not a fan of
From any
Jace. And like, if I'm not watching the LPL or the LCK, I don't want to see the Jace. I don't think there's many other teams out here in the West, and regardless if it's the professional or the amateur scene, that just understand that the Jace requires more than just, I'm better than this other guy, and I will smash him in lane. It is not that simple. Like, unless the person is just severely, and it's very disrespectful to BMD to say, dude, I'm gonna smash you with this Jace. So
and
hopefully,
level 1 too. It's oozing with disrespect.
Yeah.
All we needed was one ward in that brush, man. It's like Flares forgot about the trinket.
All it is. Well, we'll have to see, since Polar Ace are going to be taking red side again, so they clearly want that counter pick option. I hope it's a better, as you said, Cubby, it better be a counter pick option that is not completely early game reliant, unless the whole team is on the same page of understanding we are putting everything into this basket, and you're full committed. You can't be lazy about it. So Kangas and Coco are waiting for us on the other side, ladies and gentlemen. They will take you away and see what will happen in game 2.
Well, Rafa, I feel like you might have forgotten one top laner that we trust on Jason North America, and his name is Someday, but he does come from LCK, so I don't know if that counts for NA top laner. But either way, did not work out for Polar Ace in the last game. Simplicity taking game number 1 and doing it in fairly dominant fashion. Coco, we were doing some research earlier, just counting up all the ground and ground circuit points from all the different leagues, and this match means so much for Simplicity right now.
Yeah, it's something that is really funny to me, to be honest, because Polar Ace currently in just sort of the SGC circuit with the points that they've accrued, they're sitting at 175 points, sitting
minimum,
pretty all right,
minimum
like
that they can earn right now.
But Simplicity is sitting at 0. They're sitting at absolutely null points, which is weird as hell because you've got a 2-1 advantage. Like, you've already beaten Polar Ace twice in history, but you have less points than them. And then on top of that, even if you do beat them here, you only get 150 points for getting 4th place in Cup. So you're still just 25 points shy of even tying them in total. So it's something that this is only the start of Simplicity to just not only dominate them, but then to really catch up in those scouting ground points to make it into more future things.
A win here means a guaranteed minimum of 150 if they lose their next match, or lose and then lose again and get dropped down to that 4th place. They still have more points they can make, and this is of course not including LWO qualifiers. That's a whole nother bag of worms right there. This is just the scouting ground circuit amateur tournaments that are going on right now. But like you said, Simplicity, if they lose here, that means they have no points from the amateur tournament organizations. They can only get points through the LWL. That makes it pretty much impossible for them to make scouting grounds at that point in time. Yeah. They need to do well here in the Cup. And what a start, taking that first game against Polar Ace, doing it in dominant fashion. We heard the desk talking about what Polar Ace can do to kind of fight back, but honestly, it just felt like Simplicity had their number. They looked so much more comfortable around the map, and their draft was just that much better.
Yeah, and they've always had their number. And it's something where even looking at the jungle matchups, even when Panda isn't on a power farming jungler, when he's been on Gragas, been on Olaf, which is much more aggressive early on, he has the same exact results. Sure, it's not against the current jungle that Polar Ace has been able to bring up, or even the substitute that they're playing in this current series. I'm curious to see if either Infectress will actually step in this time, or if we're still going to be sticking with Pi Swaggers for game 2, because that will matter in a sense just based off of mental. But overall, they've always had that atonement of whether it is in the draft or whether it is on the Rift, that they're able to pull out a win against Polar Ace.
Yeah, Simplicity went 2-1 against them both times in the UPL. Polar Ace have yet to score above 4th place in any of the other leagues. They took 4th place in Focus, 4th place in Big League playoffs.
Yep.
So they're not reaching for that top 3, the big point values in these tournaments. They're just collecting some of these smaller points. And even if they win here, I don't think many people are expecting them to be able to take games, or take matches rather, against the likes of 100 Thieves, Anu, some of those bigger name teams. So this is potentially one of their best matchups, and if they can't even tackle Simplicity, things are looking really rough for them and their points going forward. And let's keep in mind, Simplicity, this was full spectrum before. They had a pretty explosive start to the beginning of the Scouting Ground circuit before changing over with their org, changing that bot lane, and honestly, I think that they're looking even better today than they did earlier on in the season. I'm excited for this team, and I'm really excited about what they can continually do in the draft phase. They gave up those power picks of Aphelios Volibear, but you were saying there's enough answers now to the Aphelios that you don't think that he's necessarily this top priority pick anymore, and the Blitzcrank definitely showed why.
Yeah, this is just sort of a hot take that I've been sort of sitting on for a little while, is the fact that Aphelios is not as great as it brings to the table anymore, just because of the amount of answers and riddles that have been solved around him as a champion. Like, we look at that last game, the only 2 times that Spawn was really able to do something was when he had the optimal gun setup with Severum and with the Chakrams to do that dueling around the members of Simplicity. Outside of that, they were able to zone him out. They pushed him away from his team. They zoned out other players in both Busio and Flares, that they weren't able to do anything. Sure, the draft, you could argue, provided them champions that they weren't really able to help out Spawn on that end. But overall, they had an answer to Aphelios time and time again. And even if you give a Spawn that champion once more, I don't think that is going to be an issue, because they're going to bring in either an Ashe again, or they're going to bring in something else that'll possibly come into the pockets.
They don't want to first pick the Ashe, though. I actually would have liked that from Simplicity. It was such a big tool for them last time around, but they leave it up, opting for the Karma instead.
Okay.
Flex pick Karma can go mid or bot lane, but this allows Polar Ace to grab that Ashe along with the Volibear. These are 2 gigantic power picks right now, and so far I'm loving this draft from Polar Ace. They also banned away the Karthus and the Twisted Fate, 2 of those global champions that they had a lot of trouble with last time around, so we should expect to see a very different game now.
Yeah, and I appreciate the fact that they are going Ashe Volibear. Like, you hit that level 6 and you immediately have that turret dive capability, even if it is against that Ezreal Karma. So they'll have to keep an eye on that one. I want to see if they are able to really find a good sync on that, possibly find a support that can really double down on that turret diving capability. Bard is a possible option that I have available. But what the? Okay, now they just stole that. All right, great idea, Simplicity. You done did it. You bamboozled not just me, but Polar Ace. So now they don't really have an answer to be a full turret dive composition. And it does mean that Karma is going to be going into a solo lane. Which,
Yeah, did you
allows
bamboozle Polar
Polar
Ace, or did you bamboozle yourself? Because now you don't have that flex pick as much. I mean, maybe it could go topside, but I don't
True.
expect to
Well,
see
I
that.
actually think Karma top will be pretty good. It'll have a decent situation. Karma mid might have a little bit more of a hassle, but we'll have to see as the draft goes out.
But the Thresh locked in here for Polar Ace. This is a really good lane matchup into the Bard in particular. You have Ashe Arrow, you have the Thresh hook. This is a kill lane. The Ezreal's hard to get onto, but if this Bard steps out of line, very squishy champ, even if you go for more of that tanky build. So I love this bot lane answer here from Polar Ace. Now that they see, okay, it's not going to be the Karma support, so we don't have to worry about that poke. We can just go for the engage. Simplicity, still focusing on some of these jugglers, and interesting to see an Aatrox ban come out here against Polar Ace. I feel like that's been dropping in priority lately, but it's North America. Everyone's still hung up on it so far.
True. You know, it sort of runs into the fact that Karma is most likely going to be going top instead of mid. But I want to hang around on the Bard pick a little longer, because you being a Bard player, as a matter of fact, like, you've got a lot of knowledge in these matchups. So is this something where you go either Guardian on Bard, go a little bit more that tanky route against the Thresh because of the kill potential that Ashe and Thresh bring?
Depends on what the rest of the team composition is going to be. I think in lane, absolutely, that Guardian's going to help you out a ton just for survivability. Yeah. But also, if you take the Guardian, it's great, especially if you factor in with something like the Karma, to have a hyper scaling champion elsewhere on the map. So when I'm looking mid lane, I'm looking at things like Cassiopeia. I'm looking at things like top lane Gangplank, something that can scale very well and benefit from all this shielding and healing. Otherwise, if you want to get cute with it, you can take I always forget the name of it, the one that nobody takes, Omni Stone. You can take Omni Stone on Bard. I've seen a lot of people playing around with that one too. Corki locked in here for Polar Ace, so they're opting for a little bit more of that scaling from the mid lane. To me, I think Simplicity could just lock into Azir. Just go for the Azir Corki matchup, and it's that scaling.
And yeah, like, you got some creativity going in on the first round of drafts, like with the Ashe Volibear, and then going a little bit more simplified. Mm-hmm. It does definitely tell the tale of Azir, though I feel like if you're Simplicity, this is where you go a little bit risque. You pick something else, and you... Okay, Wukong, nice idea. But this is like something a little bit more aggressive and possibly even more roam threatening, right? Like, if this does come in with a jungle lock-in and it is Wukong top with Karma mid, that's probably the worst option for me. I feel like Wukong jungle is actually a little bit underrated. Like, I think
could be the Wukong mid into the Corki.
But that's an AP matchup, and that's just tragic for Wukong. Like, that's going to be obnoxious. I want it to either be Wukong jungle with, like, a little bit more of a tankier top lane, like Bruiserish, and that's just what I'm looking for. Orin there, so it is going to be Wukong jungle. This is, like, the best thing that Simplicity could do, because now it's Karma mid into Corki, which will have a little bit of trading early on, but once you get to that power spike of Trinity Force, Corki with package will have a stronger roaming potential. So Polar Ace's level 6 game is actually really good with the setup that they have. It's just a question on if they're going to use it, because they didn't do it last time with the setup that they had. I want that to happen this time around.
And they still get one final lock in here.
Oh,
the Camille. Interesting to see. Typically, we see this paired with things like a Galio mid, something that can combo with that Hextech Ultimatum, but it still has a lot of power in that solo lane. It can take a little bit of time to come online, but if this Camille gets ahead, can get that Trinity Force, and then, maybe a Tiamat or something, have that insane split push, can be a menace in the side lane.
Yeah, so I'm still looking at just the current level 6 setup. Every single lane is a great option for Volibear to gank. So by Swaggers, I'm looking at just rush to level 6, power farm as fast as possible, make sure that you have a safe jungle clear this time initially, and contest for those scuttles so you can get to that level 6, get into these tower diving setups, and really force this mid-game pressure that your composition has. Whereas Simplicity, they have the scaling potential with Ezreal and Ornn, and also the massive teamfight wombo combo that they'll be able to push out with Wukong. So it's just a matter of patience for them, where, you have to shift to 6th gear fairly quickly for Polar Ace.
I think it's a bold move going for the Camille. If I'm being honest, yes,
I think
it's
a
something
smart
they
move.
Can play around. You just got bopped, essentially, in the early game by BMD when you picked the Jace into that Gangplank. Now you're taking the Camille into the Ornn. I don't see Camille as a champion that can really bully the Ornn around. I guess you're the resident Ornn expert. If I'm giving my input on the Bard bot side, you can give your input on the Camille top side. Is this something where you take that comment, you look for those early trades, or is this more focused on later in the game?
This is more focused later on. Like, Camille actually has a really strong level 2 dueling threat, so for them, it's just a question of how well you can dance around the bellowing breath of Ornn. And with the hyper defense matrix that she has on her passive, you get that magic damage shield, you get to really deny a lot of that initial burst trade that Ornn has, and overall, again, you have the... Also, it is the Conqueror stack into the true damage on your Q as well to really just scissor kick that lane into your favor. So for me, the Camille is not only great in the early stage with dueling, but also into that mid and late game when you become a split pushing monster that will just push them away from that lane, and then you can start threatening those fights with your team around those neutral objectives. But Nani, hopefully that's
this is very, very different from what we were expecting.
Nani.
I'll give you that. We'll wait for production to see if this is correct, because we got two different junglers
Yeah,
and the
two-third
Volibear
junglers-
top side instead of what we saw in that pro draft. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Production
maybe
didn't
it'll
tell
be a
me about
surprise.
this one, Captain, but they
Maybe
did tell
they'll
me
wait
that
till we're
Darius
in
was
game.
banned.
True,
So, yeah,
he
I'm
was
gonna
banned.
wait
I
for
don't think
in-game.
BMD is ever gonna get to play Darius. Because
Yeah.
do you think Darius is a champion that you can even blind pick? Like, I don't think he's worth
Oh, if
first
you're-
rotation, right?
BMD for sure. Like BMD could just.
Well, then
blind pick
why are they
Darius when we
doing it? Come on, Simplicity, let's go. I want to see
Well,
it.
because it's not something you want a first rotation. You can blind pick it, but
Mm.
it has to. You have to show at least some of the enemy's card. So it is Lee Sin.
It looks like we're getting
Oh.
confirmation, so it's not the Camille. Scratch all of that.
Okay, now I actually don't like this
breakdown we were
draft.
talking about.
I don't like
Instead,
this draft for Polar Ace now.
yeah, I'm not liking it as much either. It's, I
Bruh.
mean, at least it shows they can flex the Volibear, I suppose. But what is this Lee Sin gonna provide that Volibear jungle won't just do better?
Like early game pressure, but you have to be perfect on the Lee Sin to even really compete with Panda's Kindred. And thinking of like the roaming capability that both of these solo laners have, like Busio and Sudsy pretty fairly even, but the utility that will come out between Karma and Ornn to help keep Panda alive is pretty good. It's just a question on if Flares is going to be able to react faster than that of Ornn, because if you're able to get that initial burst trade from Volibear quicker than Ornn being able to apply that CC to lock down Swaggerus and Busio, that's really where you're going to be able to turn the tides in the early game. But it's just an issue for me because Lee Sin's going to fall off super fast.
Coco, I'm gonna throw up in my mouth looking at Simplicity's composition. This is disgusting. How is
worse
Polar
than-
Ace supposed to deal with this? Essentially, two supports. The Kindred and the Bard can lengthen these fights for so long, and the Ornn provides all this CC, all this engage potential. And Simplicity's got everything. They got engage, they got kite back, they got the ability to burst people, they got the ability to lengthen these fights. And on top of that, I think they got a decent team in the early game and a fantastic team composition into the mid and late game. Polar Ace, outside of that Corki, outside of maybe that Volibear, just aren't going to be scaling nearly as well as Simplicity Esports. And I think that's definitely going to bite them in the butt if they cannot get a sizable lead early.
Yeah, and a lot of the whole argument of Volibear's jungle with the composition they built up, being able to actually roam around and look for those turret dives with the setup that Spawn and Julian would be able to provide, or with what the Camille could have done with her ultimate,
Right?
locking a person under turret and disabling it with Volibear ultimate, like that being all out of the window, and then saying, okay, well, Lee Sin could flash kick and possibly knock them away from the turret and do some like more burst trading. It's just that whole perfection factor that you need to be on absolute best performance possible for this game for Polar Ace to really even feel like they'll get that early lead. Like, one strength, though, is that with the Corki package and with Lee Sin execute damage with neutral objectives, your actual like Dragon and Herald contestation's pretty good because you can quickly burst down those objectives. You can trade around with the package and zone out very effectively, especially when Spawn and Julian are down there to help you out in those situations. And Hip Hop and Bard for Mr. Bad will have a little bit of a slow ramp to get to those power spikes just because of how expensive Ezreal's build is, and the fact that Bard is going to need a little bit more mobility. Hopefully he goes Moby Boots for that one to really be a full effect for his team.
Moby Boots are pretty costly right now, Coco. That's expect a lot from
$1,000.
your support these days. Lowdown to Rift, though, Simplicity versus Polar Ace. Different compositions than we expected after that bro draft, but unique compositions in This is a weird rune choice for Mr. Bad. I've never actually seen Phase Rush Bard. I suppose it can work. It's just confusing to me.
Okay. I hope he goes super tanky. Like that's something where your first item is what would it be? It's either going to be Ardent Sensor, just because for reasons, because you have Panda and Hip Hop on your team, or
I'd be looking at something like
Frozen Heart or something.
I was gonna say Iceborne Gauntlet is what I think of when I see that. You get that slow, you get the speed up for yourself, a lot of ability to kite in these fights.
It's just an expensive item though. Like I'm thinking of something that's cheap and very efficient for those early objective contests. Like maybe Shirelia's, but even then that's kind of pointless.
Hey,
Yeah, I
we
don't
saw
know,
Core
Chief.
JJ build the Shirelias into Mikhails. One of the most
Yeah.
unique Bard builds that I've ever seen in LCS. But you know what? We'll see as the game plays out. Pretty standard start. Not a lot of action early, but Panda is spotted on this ward. So Flair's going to go check him out, see if he can do anything to just harass him away, potentially. I don't know if he's going to find much for this. And it doesn't have Smite. He's just going to spot that the blue buff is in fact taken.
Okay. All right, nice little threat. It was 3 health off from stealing that blue buff. Like, that's actually a little bit spooky than it comes out to be with how slow and tedious that Volibear sort of waddled his way down. But now swapping out, seeing if they can steal each other's raptors back and forth. You can see that Sudsy and Busio are kind of obviously telling the tale of that one. And when Spawn catches you out with the Hawk shot, sort of confirms that on that end. It allows Julian as well to go ahead, roam outside of his lane, and put a ward right next to the Krugs to make sure that they can continually track where Panda is going to be. And luckily for him, he does have his mark going to be on that top side for the scuttle. I'm pretty sure it's every single time too. Like with Kindred, the mark is always the top scuttle.
It's not supposed to be for sure, but I feel like there's a trend going on here in COP. Panda doing a great job in this early game, trying to avoid Pyswaggerus, but because you go for the deep invade, going for those Krugs, it might take a while. No, never mind. It looks like Pyswaggerus is actually going for the bottom scuttle. I thought he might just run up to that top scuttle, try and contest, and push Panda away, but no, Panda will be able to claim that one for himself. Brian Darius taking a good trade here against Flares in that tank v tank matchup on the top half of the map. Orange just has such a strong trading pattern.
Yeah, especially in this early stage once he hits that level 3, level 4 power spike with that additional damage from his stone pillar on his Q. So far with Pyswaggerus getting the Krugs, like it makes it just dead even for CS differentials. Like sure, there's a couple like CS gone because Panda decided not to finish all of the Krugs and all of the Raptors. But all right.
Oh, gone to
Nice
Mr.
time.
Bad. Has to flash away under the turret. K Hip Hop taking a lot of damage too. That's why the Thresh is so dangerous against the Bard. Bard does not have a lot of defensive tools if you get hit by that death sentence. He was able to get away through the wall, but losing most of their health for it. I like that early game aggression rather from Pyswaggerus. Getting the counter jungle invade on the bottom half, getting that scuttle, and then still looking for the gank bot side. It's just being a little more active than Panda would be, understandably, on the Kindred.
Honestly, I'd say it was more of Julian making that call. Like you saw Pyswaggerus just sort of chilling at the Krugs, and then you can see Julian walking up and saying, all right, let's look for this pick, because Mr. Bad, we can punish his positioning right there, and being able to consequently get that flash and cleanse out of him. But
BMD!
Flares
Gets an extra turret shot onto Flares, who was under turret a little too long, and the Billow's Breath for first blood. BMD played that beautifully.
Oh my goodness, Flares is just causing so many unnecessary problems here for Polar Ace. Losing these top sides now just makes this weak lane for him already just so much worse. Like, sure, you're going to be able to get the Cloud Drake because Pyswaggerus was able to get that quick recall, come straight back down because of the resets that happened bottom side, and you're going to be able to clear out and just sort of make your way, wiggle up to the top end, and possibly go for another reset to prepare for Shelly. But now you have a BMD that is going to be level 6, is going to have the item advantage, going to have the dueling potential ready. All the summoners are up, yes, but overall, that's a little bit of a confidence boost for Simplicity, and it's going to really hurt Polar Ace if they try and contest with his top end.
2 games in a row. Flares giving over that first blood in the 1v1 to his lane opponent. Now Flares taking away the Krugs, but Panda's in the neighborhood. Flares could be in trouble. Flashes over the wall to avoid the second tick of that Ornn ultimate, so uses the summon spell, gets away, but now could be dove here as the mid lane's also walking up. Meanwhile, bot side hero goes over the wall, has to flash back. Yeah, a little bit aggressive there. Now Flares under turret, uses the ultimate, gets those tanky stats, but Sudsy spent all the time to roam up here, and Panda will be donated that kill.
Yeah, and with the roams from both of these teams, and with the result only going for one of them in favor for Simplicity, sure, you have a little bit of unhealthy players, especially on Panda, but he can just go ahead and smite the red buff that will be coming up fairly shortly. Oh, TP from Flares. I think he's going to be confident to say, you know what, I'm going to try and kill Panda before he hits level 6.
Yeah, Panda's still level 5. No flash available. Flares is there. The red buff is secured. And Panda's over the wall. Oh, he's going to try and bag. Spotted by Spawn. Teleport coming in from Brown Darius. Flares running all the way around. He's looking for it. Panda's going to have to turn and fight. Trying to run away now. Flares charging forward and gets the stun. Donated that red buff and picks himself up a kill.
Okay, just sticking a little bit too long. Got some confidence in your boots, but Panda does mean that he's going to relieve some of the pressure for Simplicity and giving it over to Polar Ace actually in favor. Honestly, if I was Pythagoras, I'd say, you know what, let's get some additional wards and just get some control around this Herald and make sure that Simplicity doesn't look for that rotation onto that objective, especially when you have just such a strong lane on this top end and bottom side isn't doing too bad for themselves. Sure, you're around 20 CS down, but right now, like, Hip Hop's not complaining. He's Ezreal. He'll eventually just be that obnoxious ADC that's going to be extremely hard to get onto. You're not going to be able to stick onto him. He's going to dish out as much damage with those Mystic shots as much as possible, but for now, keeping it calm, keeping it steady. Sure, you had that hiccup, but all is well for Simplicity.
It feels like this is how the game one should have gone, right? You know, Simplicity still drafted a fairly late scaling composition. In game one, we were treated to a bloody early game, a lot of action going on. This time around, there's still been a few kills early on, but Simplicity, they're not in any kind of rush. They can scale, they can just go for these safer plays. Panda got caught out that one time, but now the rest of the team is focused on these objectives, getting this Rift Herald while Pythagoras is on the bottom half of the map. But like you said, that's K Hip Hop. That's an Ezreal. Hard to get on top of that guy, so I actually like this play a lot more from Simplicity.
Yeah, I don't know why Polar Ace is just sort of forfeiting that and not getting the knowledge. Like, you know that Simplicity is going to be looking for more true objectives. Okay, I guess you get the kick, which is cool.
Okay, Hip Hop has to flash away. I don't think Pythagoras is going to find this. Oh, the arrow barely goes wide as teleport comes down from Sudsy on the mid lane, while there's one Wu on top side. Brown Darius does get out of that one, and there's no kill bottom either. Sudsy even flashed to try and stick onto Pythagoras, but you can't stick on the Lisa.
And with that, now you have a 30 CS differential in favor of Spawn, and he also got a turret plate to boot when they were disengaging after that sort of overextension there from Pythagoras. So seeing if that gold will still come in for a cash-in for an objective contestation is now the question. With the reset that's coming in, he's sitting on 1,900 gold. So he could grab a lot of stuff right now where, you know, K-Hip Hop is just sort of struggling to find the scraps at this moment. Sure, he has the tier and the pickaxe, so he's just going to wait around, see if he can go back, recall for that Manamune, and then sort of haul his butt right back to the lane. But I wanted that reset from Spawn and Julian to come in to just swap around and see if they can get some additional pressure and sort of let the wave push back into their favor to prepare for this dragon that's coming up in the next few seconds.
That's the big thing. Dragon coming up, and they back just in time to spend all that gold, and now get back down to this bottom half of the map where Pythagoras is already down here as well. They got those 2 control wards, so they've spent some time to get control around this, and I don't think Simplicity will be able to contest. I mean, yeah, they're going for a reset themselves right now. They're spotted on Vision doing it. So if I'm Polar Ace, I'm pulling the trigger on this as fast as I can. We see Busio pushing that mid wave. I'm expecting another free dragon here for Polar Ace, which means Simplicity, they got to think of what else they can do on the map. I think that they're smart enough to realize that one's gone, so now they're making the play topside instead.
Now,
here we go, Porch God, the knock up, the double knock up. He's so far up in the air as Panda provides the damage. BFD gets the kill, but well played by Simplicity, realizing we're given the dragon, but let's get something else for it.
Oh, okay. Busio is making sure that they're not going to be able to get any additional turret plates because you do have Shelly on Panda. Oh, hello,
Bard,
Mr. Bard.
Though. Mr. Bad gets the flash out of him with the Tempered Fate. Beautiful use of the ultimate. Roaming on this Bard. Doesn't have the Mobies, but still has tier 2 boots, so gets around the map very fast. And this might be a full turret topside if they drop this Rift Herald.
Yeah, I think it is going to be. And I'm curious to see who's going to be getting first turret. Spawn is doing a good amount of damage on that Ashe just by herself, but I'll have to see with the Herald. He hasn't even dropped it yet. Like, he's waiting for the turret plate to drop in. Now with third plate, he might be able to channel it. Yep, gets ready. Gets it primed and good to go. There you are. Now that turret is as good as gone, and Spawn unfortunately does not have the minions to continue the siege, so that turret is going to be delayed, but it is still going to be a trade 1-for-1 anyways, with a lot of turret plates going over to Spawn. Oh,
and another play
Sudsy.
mid now here for Polar Ace. Sudsy could be in some trouble, but has the Karma Shield to stay alive. Flares now on the flank. No ultimate available. It's still just going to run Sudsy down. You're tanky enough to tank up turret, but Sudsy with the ultimate W actually heals back a lot right there. Flare's taking one too many turret shots. Needs to back up. Very low on health. Sudsy played that beautifully. I love the use of the Mantra Empowered W to actually get that health back and turn that gank around.
stupendous work there from Sunzi, being able to survive a potential 3v1 turret threat for his life and just making sure that the pressure is not given away in that mid lane. This is just a little bit of a trade back and forth between Pyspagorus and Hip Hop, and just this is the Mystic Shot obnoxiousness that will be so brutish to deal with later on. Nice E as well to keep it the trade. I wonder how many of those he got. I believe it was like 5 or so of those Krugs. But eventually you do get some vengeance, and Spawn is able to get the kill on that end. That was just something that happened offsides while we were watching for those turret races for that first brick. But
the turret
overall,
dive mid, yeah.
1 minute
I like
left
to see
until
Polar
turret
Ace
plates, though.
fighting back. This is definitely a scrappier game, or a closer game rather, than game number 1. We're not seeing as many kills early on, but definitely a more even game played from each side. The issue being, Polar Ace has their more early game focused composition. I don't know if they're putting themselves enough in any sort of lead to actually take down Simplicity as we're transitioning now into the mid game. They get the 2 dragons, that feels great, as now the blue buff donated over to Boostio, trying to keep control more of that mid lane. But Simplicity, they're still scaling. They're still looking like a huge threat in the late game, as they're going to take another turret topside. Finally, that bot turret taken by Polar Ace, but I mean, this is going to be a huge lead for Simplicity here.
Yeah, again, that second turret, like, just in a matter of time, they're just waiting for that minion wave to come crashing up, and they have
cheeky death brush.
They have the bouncer checks, yeah. Like, that death brush is just there to be the bouncer to let him into the top lane club, and no one is going to be coming through that door. Have to take the actual traditional method of the lane. That's just
tempered fate, call the Forge God, trying to wait it out. Ooh, not quite timed correctly, as now this could be the answer. Panda very far forward on top of the Volibear, flashes away, but gets the kill. Lambs Spite to buy a little more time. Mr. Bad's out of there by Swaggerus. I don't know if that's where you wanted to go. Gets stunned up, gets knocked up, and should go down. The final auto not going to be enough to get through that Thresh shield. The flash, death sentence, 3-man flame from Julian. This could be the turnaround play that Polar Ace are looking for, but the Bard portals are just too useful here for Simplicity. Plus the Karma speed ups, they will get out of that one. But well played by Polar Ace to actually fight back.
Yeah, well done from Polar Ace, but honestly, it's all Mr. Bard, Mr. Bad, being able to get in and get his team out with some kills. And so far, with the turret siege coming in, I don't even think they're going to be able to take that turret. But
yeah, Coco, I don't know if K-Hip-Hop's safe right now. Flares goes for the teleport play. Oh, that's brutal to watch. A bear just chomping on a poor little Explorer, Ezreal.
I honestly wouldn't feel too bad with that death. Like, he is so far behind that it's just a waiting game for him. He's sitting in pretty much purgatory at this moment until he's able to get to at least either an Iceborne Gauntlet or possible Blade of the Rune King 3-item power spike to really start to feel the burn. But honestly, downsets and like that aren't too much to worry about for Simplicity, because Panda is that additional hard focus carry marksman that you can really invest in. It's just really a 1v1 bout of saying how well will either of these players be able to deal with Spawn on this Ashe, because Polar Ace, they're still playing to what Cubby wants them to do, which is focus around Spawn, make him be that sole individual carry that will just bring the rest of Polar Ace through this game. It's just not on the Aphelios as they wanted, and it's someone who has a little bit more utility in finding picks and making plays instead of the enemy coming to him.
And when K-Hip-Hop's this far behind, I actually think that that's a huge play for Polar Ace. So I'm going to disagree with you there, Coco. I mean, that pick on the bot side means that K-Hip-Hop's even further behind, as now the fight breaks out mid-side. Panda doesn't have the ultimate available and goes down just so quickly in that fight by Swaggerus. Oh, the flash. Now they're called Forge God. They really want this Lee Sin, but they can't find a Boostio with the defensive use of that package. Now Spawn getting that damage on the Brown Man Darius. The Orange trying to do what he can, but here's the Volibear onto the back line with the flank, and they are chasing down Simplicity. Polar Ace are not deterred right now. They are ready to fight with this early game scrappy composition, and they're running Simplicity away from this objective. Simplicity will have to give up another dragon unless there's some crazy steal going on here. But so far, Polar Ace not looking to let that happen.
No, they're going to be able to get this contestation for the third dragon and for Soul Point. Why are you there, Bad?
I couldn't tell you. Oh, True Shepherd. Nah, it's not enough. Never mind.
He's too weak for that to actually be an execute. He did finally get mana immune, though. Like, it's been a while that he's been stacking it. I'm curious to see how many stacks he has until he's able to get the Mura mana execute and really get that item power spike for himself with the upgrade. But that was such a beautiful package from Boostio. Like, this was some heckin' trouble here. So honestly, Polar Ace was in a bit of a bad bout because like the Enchanted Crystal Arrow missing and then Spawn getting denied by the Tempered Fate allows for enough time for the side of Simplicity to combat. But here is where that re-engagement just gets absolutely denied by Busio, pushes them all back, allows Flares to come in for that re-engagement, and it was all up to that package just to help reset the entire fight from step 1 to step 2. And the chase is great, but honestly it's not really necessary. It's just forcing them away from the dragon and denying any additional security or threat onto that point.
Busio showing up, drawing that line of scrimmage, saying we do not want you to pass us here. I don't know if that was a weird visual glitch. It looked like Busio used Valkyrie and then package. I don't know what was going on there on my screen, but either way, well played there by Polar Ace, and they find themselves in a very comfortable spot now on that soul point. 3,000 gold ahead, just a little less over Simplicity. And yeah, we've been saying this whole time, Simplicity, they got a scaling comp. They don't need to feel too pressured to make plays happen early on. But now we're starting to see a sizable lead for Polar Ace, something that I actually believe they could pull off here as they're trying to transition out into the deeper mid game. One more dragon, and suddenly the poke from this comp will start to hurt a lot.
Yeah, we can see on the bottom left hand of our screen. That's the Thresh Lantern that sort of got Busio out, and then that's the whole reset.
Okay.
It was very clutch indeed, but honestly, he could have flashed out, to be fair.
Death
but
sentence.
Yeah, good
again. Panda caught out of position again.
Ooh.
Oh, Tempered Fate from Mr. Mag, keeping him alive. He's got Flames Despite. He does use it. They can turn this around now. Hero's got to stay in there, but Panda able to reposition, able to get to the back line now. 2 Hero does fault out. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Just the supports as of right now, but Spawn too far forward. Has to flash away. The knockup lands. Spawn's in trouble. A double kill to Busio. But a shutdown to Panda. Busio in trouble too. Brown Mandarius will take that one. It's just by Swaggerous left. Flare's nowhere nearby. Going for that bottom turret instead. K-Hip Up almost goes down. But Simplicity does win the fight.
Dude, these supports are nuts. Hopefully they get sponsored by Planters or something. But nonetheless, like, look at this. Perfect Bard ultimate. Allows enough time for the respite. And it allows all that extra momentum to swing back into their favor. And all the tools were already gone for the side of Polar Ace, and it was just that re-engagement. And Flares doesn't have TP to even try and come in on this fight, so it was really that 5v4. Beautiful sort of corner knock-up as well from DMD to secure that kill onto Spawn to save Hip Hop's life as well, so they can continue that chase and get the kills. So overall, a beautiful save there from the side of the bad Mr. Bard, as he was able to help turn that fight in his team's favor and tie up the kill score and very much shorten up the difference between them in gold.
And K-Hip Hop's feeling great after that one. Getting a few kills there, getting some gold into the Ezreal's pocket, building the very defensive Iceborne Gauntlet. I don't hate it right now, especially when you're this far behind. But just that influx means that you're feeling like you can output a little bit more damage now in these team fights. A lot of that, though, is, like you said, Coco, because Flares did not have that teleport.
He's almost done with the Manamune.
He's almost got that Muramana. He's about 6-7 abilities
just a few
away.
skill shots off. Yeah, but this is something where that's sort of a nice physical representation and imagery of what Simplicity needs to do. They just need to wait it out a little bit. Like, you look at the items that they have, you're still waiting on that Muramana, as we mentioned. We're also waiting for that second item power spike for him to fully complete with the Iceborne Gauntlet. And you're also waiting for BMD on Ornn to get to the point where he can start upgrading those items and giving his team some free gold to help play catch up against Polar Ace, who are still almost at that point of finishing their 2 item power spikes. Like, yeah, it's great that Simplicity has a team composition that lets them have a cheaper itemization, but overall, just wait it out. But Julian's not letting you. Julian
just goes aggressive as hell right there. I don't think that was the right call. The turnaround here from Simplicity easily takes out by Swaggerous. Lee Sin's not that tanky, but there's a re-engage. Busio's a mad lad on this quirky packaging in and finding that engage on a Panda. Lamb's Respite just now coming off. Cooldown was not available at that moment in time. And now Brown Mandarius looking for the re-engage, trying to get onto Flares. Sudsy, and they have damage from K-Hip Hop as well. Sudsy trying to get through. Everyone get to the portal! Get to the chopper! Brown Mandarius can't find it. Spawn will shut him down, and Polar Ace just barely getting back from that one. Oh no. The Q Cosmic Binding coming in here from Bard, finding onto Busio. Dragon still doing some damage. It's reset a few times. Hip Hop taking a lot of poke, a lot of damage here. Spawn running forward, throws out the heal. Oh, just barely takes Mr. Bard. Full range on that Ash W. The volley putting in work here. Sudsy now looking for it. Death Sentence lands. I think he's going down too. Sudsy has to flash away, but with Swagger is here, they have their smite. Panda's too far away. Sudsy could die to one Thresh auto, and that will be Dragon Soul picked up now. Over the wall goes multiple members of Polar Race, but Hip Hop jumps to the other side, and a double kill over the side of Simplicity. Polar Ace, they get their dragon, but they get a little greedy after.
And that's all started with a little bit of a greedy hook there from Julian. But in the end, the engagement from Flares and Busio's package and ultimate together helped turn that fight back into their favor. Absolutely destroyed Panda in that re-engage, and now it's letting them to go ahead, get some more control onto the map. We'll see if we can get a replay once the action starts to calm down, but I don't think we're going to be able to get that as this Hail Mary play is coming in.
No Thresh. The Juggler and Support are down, so 5 members here of Simplicity. Actually, just 4 as Hip Hop is not around, so it will be a 4v3. Now 4v4,
Okay.
the Corki teleport into the mid lane could look to engage here. Does not have the package, but look at Flares over the wall trying to get onto Mr. Bad, but the Baron does go down and secured here by Simplicity. Can Polar Ace win the fight? Now the chain CC out of Busio. Corki's not having a good time as Flair's trying to tank up the front line, do all of this work right now. He does take down Panda, but will fall himself. Now a 4v3. Simplicity can look to chase down Polar Ace if they want, but maybe it's the Death Sentence onto Hip Hop trying to get onto this Ezreal, but he's got those tanky stats. And they turn the play around yet again on the Swaggerus, not having the breakout performance that they want from their substitute jungler, and Simplicity will win the fight.
We have had 2 Hail Mary Baron plays after Dragon Soul has been taken for us, like just this week, Kangas. Like we had the one with LBGN trying to go for the Hail Mary Baron, and now this one with Simplicity. So the fact that this one is actually to turn around for the better and now just turn into a massive power play is just showing how much potential Simplicity has with this composition. The objective threat potential that they're able to get with Kindred, with Sudsy on that Karma to help ramp up that attack speed on the Ardent Sensor for Karma. And here it is again. This is that whole Hail Mary play. The Enchanted Crystal Arrow missing is actually kind of crucial because it delays the engagement from players to jump in onto Sudsy, and he has to hard force back onto this Baron to see if he can stop Panda from securing it. Thankfully, you can still smite while you're stunned for Panda, and they're able to turn this fight back around with the respite coming in to help delay a little bit more time for them to really get a grasp of everything. And Hip Hop, actually playing spacing duty. You don't really see that on an Ezreal, but hell, at this point with that power play, it was nuts.
Yeah, and we didn't get to see the end there, but Swaggerus thought he could assassinate this Ezreal, but because of the build, because of the Iceborne Gauntlet, it was just not meant to be. Now Polar Ace with the Death Brush. They have some vision choke here on the bottom half of the map, but there's no reason for Simplicity to be there. So they prep it, don't find anything for it. Simplicity, you lost the Dragon Soul, but you got the Baron. Now if you win a fight, you can find a lot, but Panda caught out here. Oh no! Goes down way too fast. Polar Ace find a pick, and that will definitely put a damper on Simplicity's Baron power play.
Yeah, definitely slows down quite a lot, actually. Like, you have your side lane pressure, sure, so you could possibly wander on up, but the problem is, Polar Ace has a really strong 5v5, and they can just battering ram your mid and look for these picks here and there.
And try and find a Hip Hop. Oh, Swaggerus can't find the kick, though, but it doesn't matter. Flares is there for the engage onto the AD carry. Now everyone from Simplicity has to run back, get out a dodge. Polar Ace finds their engage. First on the Panda, then onto Hip Hop, and now they're actually pushing back against the Baron push that is Simplicity. Death Sentence on Brown Man Darius. Hero taken up under turret, taking a few too many turret shots, though, but now Flares re-engaging here onto Mr. Bad. Bard has to flash away, but just gets deleted. Flares is down. Panda's back into the fight. Another Death Sentence. He's taken out twice before he can use the Lamb's Respite, and also a shutdown onto Sudsy Coco. This could be the final push here from Polar Ace. They might just tie up the series.
And this was the battering ram 5v5 that Polar Ace's comp is, and they're just trying to see if they can tie the series up.
Simplicity just trying to slow them down, push them away from these turrets, but Mr. Bad falls. Brown Man Darius cannot frontline anymore, but with no wave Polar Ace might have to back off. They don't want to. They can smell it. They can see it. The visualization of this victory is too strong, and they will march this
Pandas
final
in 8
wave
seconds.
in. It's up to Brown Mandarius. It's up to K-Hip Hop. Try to mount this last-ditch effort to defend, and I think they might
that
have it.
knockup.
The knockup lands onto 2 Hero. Julian could be in some trouble here, and now Panda's up. Yep, Polar Ace have to back off. They have the Infernal Stole, but it's not going to be enough to help them close out this game right here, right now.
Oh, Panda is on the chase. This TP from Sudsy and BMD.
Brown
just
Mandarius. He's about to have to call the Forge God. Oh no, Panda! What the heck? That's the 3rd time, man. Come on. I'll give it to you once. Maybe I'll give it to you twice, but you gotta make it happen a 3rd time, and now BMD will go down. That's gotta be game here for Polar Ace. 5 members. Maybe not. There's still 3 full health members of Simplicity, but come on, Panda. What's going on?
Bruh, if they lose this game, it is 100% Panda just inting 3 times in a row.
That was insane.
Oh, we were talking about War Pandas earlier, but like this is not War Pandas. This is straight like adopt a panda. Like they're just adopting pandas left and right, and they're just like giving them over to
like,
Polar Ace, and they're like,
This is
here,
like
just
those
take it.
pandas. It's like those pandas that are endangered, so they have to be raised in like a confined habitat, and they're put back into the wild. And they just don't know what to do. They're like, how do I survive? How do I live?
What do I do?
Basically,
Where
what
do
it
they
feels
move?
like to watch Panda right now. But actually, it's K-Hip Hop might get caught out this time around. There's flares over the wall, and the package from Busio trying to get all that damage, but the shields from Sudsy are just too much. Now the re-engage onto flares. Volibear flashes in and takes out K-Hip Hop. This bear is scary. That's the bear you gotta be afraid of. They also take down Panda for a 4th time. Coco, what is going on? Polar Ace are running the map in this late game. They're barely misses Sudsy, but Polar Ace just cannot flip tails this game. They can now push in all 5 members. It's just Sudsy left alive. This should be the end of the game.
This should, like, let's just put a big old bold should underline and make it a can. Just, it will be, honestly.
Sudsy's the guys. I got the split
okay,
push.
Sudsy understands it.
I got the shove topside, but unfortunately, your inhibitors go down. Your Nexus follows suit, and all it took was 4 picks in a row onto Panda's Kindred. Polar Ace tie up the series in one of the most thrown games I've seen all split.
I don't know. My face is gonna pretty much explain the final 5 minutes of that game for Simplicity's performance, but hopefully we'll switch to cams eventually. But yeah, you'll begin to understand though. As to be honest, like Simplicity had that entire game going for them. They had the tempo pressure, they had the power spikes ready, ramped up, and primed. But I guess they just decided that, 2-1, I guess. Make it 2-1.
They wanted to make it close. I predicted 2-1. I guess I predicted 2-1 for Simplicity. So we needed Polar Ace to at least win one. We'll give it to them. They got that one. Not how I expected that game to go. Polar Ace had a lead. They had a 3k gold advantage, and they were on Dragon Point. They got that Dragon Soul. I was like, okay, cool. This is a better Polar Ace. We're starting to see them scrap. And then Simplicity pulled back. They got that Baron. They were winning a couple of those team fights. But if Panda's just going to give it to them, Polar Ace is going to take it. They find pick after pick, arrow after arrow, and Flares being willing to jump in as well. Constantly just throwing everything they have at Panda.
Yeah, like, honestly, I can give a pass for the first 2 dragons because the composition that Simplicity built was more to prioritize to get to that late game stage. Open up the map a little bit more so Panda could roam around. Prioritize Rift Herald instead of just the 2 initial dragons, and then you can just all in on Dragon Soul. But they didn't really convert that thought process over into the mid-late game when Soul became a possible threat. And unfortunately for them, it was Panda. He carried them into the game, but they also threw him right back out and made it a 1-1 tie series. So I'm gonna be excited to see how much scolding Panda is gonna be getting during the break. But honestly, he was still the carry potential for them in that second game of the series. So honestly, can't feel too bad about it. Just hiccups here and there. Clean up the play style, get back into the draft for game 3, and close this one out for Simplicity.
I loved their draft. They had the double support with the double AD carry and the Ornn front line. You can upgrade all these items, provide the engage in that front line thread. Simplicity had the tools. They had everything they needed.
The Bard
Polar
Keystone
Ace
was
were just
questionable
better on the day. Questionable
that,
for sure. I like it from Polar Race. They're making it a close series, fighting back in that game number 2, bringing us to game point for both sides. Now we're going to send it over to a short break while we get ready and prepared for that final game 3. So don't you go anywhere.